Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons.
Let me start by viewing these 5 verses overall. There does appear to be some redundancy here.
Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to give light upon the earth, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and to rule over the day and over the night, to divide the day from the night, and to divide the light from the darkness.
Even more so when you read the Septuagint version, which suggests that there were different versions of the original text at one time. Now verse 14 is the creation by divine fiat, where God speaks the lights into their positions in the firmament. So why then, in verse 17, is God setting them in place? And why does he have to go on and on about the purpose of these lights? One verse would have been sufficient here. This, I hope, you will see is clearly another Sabbath modification, unnecessary for the divine fiat, but necessary if you want your God doing some work, checking that the work is good, and then resting once it is complete. There are a couple of suggestions for why these verses appear to be so tortured. I hope I don't need to say, but I'm about to anyway, that primitive peoples venerated the sun and moon. The sun provided obvious heat, its yearly cycle could be measured, and the agricultural calendar was tied to it. The moon's cycle provided a way of measuring shorter periods of time. The word month comes from moon, and the regular cycle of the moon could easily be split in half and in quarter, which is, I'm sure, the origin of our 7-day week. I think every culture we know elevated the sun and moon to the status of gods. I'm not going to labour this, but the pagan religions of the Near East included the sun and moon in their pantheons. For the writers of the Bible to transmit a monotheistic message then, these bodies had to be reduced to inanimate objects, and any suggestion that the monotheistic God was anything but the original creator had to be hammered home. And so God speaks the sun and moon into existence, and states clearly what they are for. They are not gods, not even lesser gods. They are signs, and for seasons, days and years, and nothing else. But just to be certain the pagans got no ideas, God does not even name the sun and moon. Consider how laboured it must have been to explain a version of creation of the heavens without mentioning the sun and moon by name.
Well, next God created the big bright things in the sky.
You what?
The bright things. The bright thing that is in the sky during the day, and the other bright thing that is in the sky during the night, sometimes.
You mean the sun and moon?
Pagan! Heretic!
The problem for the writers of the Bible is that by naming the sun and moon, they would be naming, and implicitly admitting to, two gods. Shamash, the sun god, had been around since at least Akkadian times, and is remembered in the Bible by the place names ending in Shemesh. And the Canaanite moon god, Yarak, also known as Yarik in Ugaritic myths, is possibly the source of the name Jericho, although there is argument that the root for Jericho also means fragrant. Anyway, here, on the 4th day, God creates lights, plural. Not light, of course. He created that on day 1, when he separated it from the darkness, and called the light day and the darkness night. So what are these lights he is creating here for? To divide the day from the night? Well, that cannot be right. That's already been covered elsewhere, and we've had 3 days and nights without any help from lights in the firmament. Now perhaps the light created on day 1 was simply a construction lamp, erected until the galactic power lines were extended to this part of the universe. And now these new lights in the firmament will take over the job of illuminating the Earth through its day-night cycles, just as the original light had done. Of course, this begs the question, if these lights are simply providing exactly the same function with respect to the Earth as the light created on day 1 did, why not stick them in place on day 1? I previously suggested that the original light was figurative, suggesting that separating light from darkness was actually the act of separating order from chaos. And the labour description of the heavenly bodies here only adds to that suggestion in my mind. It's also clear from the purposes of the newly created bodies stated here, and the fact that their creation lags the creation of the plants, that the writers had no clue that the sun was required for plant growth, and that life on Earth therefore very much depends on the pre-existence of the sun. Now the Sun-Earth system, with the Earth orbiting the sun, or vice versa, is sufficient to provide seasons, years, and the day-night cycle, and sufficient for any person studying the apparent movement of the sun across the sky and how that movement differs throughout the year to produce a calendar. The moon could be added to easily count the weeks. Nothing else is required. The planets and stars are superfluous here, though to be accurate, the planets don't get a mention in this scientifically accurate creation account. But God states that the stars are there for a reason, and the only reason left is for signs. So what signs? The apologist will tell you that this does not mean astrology. Astrologers are Satan worshippers who prophesy on future events based on the movement of the heavenly bodies. Don't mention the Star of Bethlehem. And I'll leave it to you to decide why God placed the stars up there. But bear in mind that on a clear night you will be able to see around 2,000 stars with the naked eye, and every one of those stars you see will be in our galaxy, the Milky Way. It's been less than 100 years since it was determined that the universe consisted of more than just our galaxy, and now the figures are staggering. Hundreds of billions of known galaxies, with hundreds of billions of stars in each, and a significant proportion of those having planets orbiting them. If grains of sand were stars, all of the stars you can see with the naked eye would comfortably fit in a teaspoon. And to count all the stars in the universe, that would be like counting all the grains of sand on all the beaches on planet Earth. Now, for what sign did God place all those lights in the firmament? The ones we knew nothing about until science put a telescope into space. Perhaps then the fact that they are out there, and the Bible makes no mention of them, is a sign that God does not exist. The two great lights is an interesting choice of words, the sun and moon. Again, our tame apologists will say, no, the scientifically accurate in every way Bible is not saying that the moon is a light source. It's referring to reflected light. Well, I would humbly suggest from the evidence presented that the apologists are barking at the moon. And there we are, at the end of day 4, and the firmament is stuffed full of lights, and above them the waters. That's your lot. Thanks for watching.